Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. And today I have a very special guest with me. It's my friend Kevin Trushenski, and today we're going to be doing an episode of Discography Ranked, where we look at a band's discography and rank it from worst to best. Worst doesn't mean it's a bad album, it just means that it's their least memorable in their discography, what I would say. So Green Day has 13 studio albums they've released over the course of their 3-decade-plus career. So we're going to start at number 13. Kevin, what's your least favorite Green Day record?
My least favorite would have to be their first album, 39 Smooth.
39, really? Why is that?
I just think that they're still just like learning how to make their music, and their songs on there, well, they're very good, and don't get me wrong, I like every Green Day album in some capacity or another, but I think that 39 Smooth lacks some of the lyrical creativity of some of their later works, and just the sound overall isn't my favorite.
And it was recorded on a budget of $600. So It was not high budget. I've recorded records and I've never spent as little as $600. So the fact that that studio album has kind of been around for that long at that budget, sure, it's been remastered and remixed a bunch of times over the years. But yeah, I'm surprised that is your least favorite record, because my number 13 is their most recent album, Father of All Motherfuckers. And the reason for that is it felt kind of aimless. It felt like a record they made on a whim. Sure, some of it has a lot of energy, and a lot of the songs I do like, but it feels a little directionless, and it feels like a regression. It feels like they tried to make another album in the style of the Uno Dos Tres trilogy,
Sure.
rather than building on Revolution Radio and giving us kind of a sequel to 21st Century Breakdown in a way. And it's super short. It's less than a half hour, so this thing could have been like an EP at the end of the day. Sure, I enjoyed it. I enjoy all the Green Day records, but that's why Father of All Motherfuckers is at the number 13 spot for me.
Understandable.
What's your number 12?
My number 12 is Dose.
Dose.
I like the trilogy. It's fine and all. I think Dose is the weakest of the 3 albums there. Honestly, my favorite song off of Dose is probably Nightlife, just because it's just freaking weird.
That's why I like that album, though. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like songs like Fuck Time, and it's the oddest of the trilogy.
It is, yeah. It's not what I think of when I think about, like, I want to listen to a Green Day song, I'm going to put on Dose.
My number 12 is 39 Smooth.
Okay.
Their first album. I like songs like Going to Pasaquila. I like that album, but the production on it is just kind of cringy, especially when you compare it to like Dookie a few years later. Like, that sounds really, really good, and this one just sounds kind of amateurish. Some of the songs hold up later, and it's not even as good as Kerplunk, the next album that came out.
Right.
So that's why it's number 12 for me. So number 11, what do you got?
Number 11, I have Father of All Motherfuckers.
At least we agree that it's not that great.
Yep, it's not great. It's not bad per se, like I'm not mad when I hear a song off of it, but again, it's just not what I expect of when I think of Green Day as what I want to listen to. I love Green Day, and Billy Joe could just read the phone book and I'd still love it. The production was very different than anything else. I definitely think they didn't feature Trey Cool as much as they could have for his potential, because I think he's a fantastic drummer, but there was a lot of clap tracks in that album that they probably could have done without.
And especially after kind of a long wait since we had Revolution Radio.
Yeah.
It was weird to get this weird short. I don't know what they were aiming for on it. There were some fun tracks, like the song like Oh Yeah is and the title track are good. I enjoyed those songs.
Yeah.
Pity we didn't get to hear them live anytime soon.
Yeah, that would have been better to hear something live. In 2020, Green Day did far better with their side project, The Network.
The Network is interesting.
Yeah.
This almost could have been a Network record.
It could have been,
like a weird spin-off band where they just swear all the time, and felt like when your dad tries to be cool. All these guys are dads and in their mid-40s, they're like early 50s, so it's weird to hear them try to make something cool, and kind of like where Blink-182 is at their career too.
Absolutely.
Like, you're allowed to grow and change. We want to see that. We can just listen to Enema of the State or listen to Dookie if you want to hear you at your adolescence. This felt like the guy who hangs out at the all-ages venue and just like tries to hang out with the kids. But my number 11 is Dose. I like Dose. I like the Uno Dos Tres trilogy a lot. This is just the weakest one. I think we hit all the points of this. That's why it's at number 11. Number 10.
Number 10, I went with Uno.
Really?
Yeah, I'd put it in the middle of my ranking of the trilogy. I think it just kind of lacks some of the inspiration, some of their previous albums. It's not extremely memorable like some of their other works are.
On the other side of that, my number 10 is Trey. I like Uno more than Trey. I think Uno is a little bit more solid. Trey feels a little bit overly long. I like a lot of songs on Trey, but it just doesn't pack as much of a punch. Maybe it's because I listened to Uno so many times before Trey came out.
Yeah.
I was kind of done with this trilogy after Dose. I'm like, okay.
That's fair.
They could have scaled down Uno, Dos, and Trey to one amazing record.
Yeah, they could have made a double album or something of it.
At least. There's a lot of songs could just wipe your hands clean. And I didn't love the production on all three of those records.
Yeah, it was a bit different.
Have you heard some of the versions they put out recently with heavier guitars?
Yeah, those are
a
really
lot
good.
better.
Absolutely.
But I watched the Quattro documentary they did for this where they were talking about that. They're like, well, Back in Black has these really clean guitars and it's really powerful. The difference with that is it's a different style, one, and the guitars on Back in Black are heavier.
Yep, they certainly are.
These feel almost like if you got a clean channel and amplifier and just like hit really hard.
Yeah.
AC/DC's never done that, especially on Back in Black, but they were on drugs that entire time, so it probably didn't help.
Totally.
That whole documentary was weird too.
It was.
Where they made Jason White a member for like half a second and then quickly disowned him.
Yeah, that was weird. Like, I first noticed it when Uno came out, and in the booklet for the album, they list him as a guitarist for it, and I was like, really, since when did he become an official member? And then he was gone during Revolution Radio.
And he's still in the band too, so he didn't leave. And he's been with the band since Warning. Was he a touring guitar player on that tour? I just think Trey's a little bit weaker, but maybe that's just my sentimental side towards Uno, but that's why he's at number 10.
That's fair, yeah.
Number 9. I think this is a spot that we're going to differ heavily on, but I want to hear your number 9.
For number 9, I have Kerplunk. I like Kerplunk and all. It definitely has some good strong points to it that show that they were improving after 39 Smooth. I really like songs like Christie Road. It's good to hear their first take on Welcome to Paradise on that album as well. It shows really that they were laying the groundwork for where they were going after that.
Like songs like on that album, like Who Wrote Holden Caulfield, 2000 Light Years Away. If you listen to their live record for the 21st Century Breakdown Tour, Awesome as Fuck, those versions sound phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, I think the production holds that album back a little bit. The first record was recorded for $600. They beefed it up on this one to $1,200.
Yep.
So, like, a month's rent at a lot of places in Eau Claire is what they recorded that record for.
Yeah.
And a lot of those songs hold up. I think it holds up a lot better than 39 Smooth does. And it kind of hints at things that they're going for on Dookie. I think they feel the same way about it, especially when they're pulling, like, Welcome to Paradise and re-recording it.
Yeah.
They're like, these songs are really solid. We just don't have the resources to make the record that we want to right now. And I think that album is really cool. It shows Green Day at their most vibrant, I think.
Sure.
Their most amateurish in a good way, though. Because they really just didn't care. At later times, they kind of were making those songs out of almost a necessity or an expectation.
Yep.
But at that time, they were just kind of writing from an amateurish point of view. And Who Wrote Holden Caulfield is still one of my favorite songs that they did
fantastic,
in the 90s, for sure. So that's a solid pick. But my number 9 choice is Warning.
Interesting.
I think a lot of the songs, Macy's Day Parade, Minority off of Warning, were really good songs. I don't like the production on that album.
Okay.
I don't like the guitar tone. That's a big thing with Green Day, is their guitar tones vary heavily. As where AC/DC, they vary a little bit. Most bands, they keep to a pretty solid sound most of their career. Green Day sort of keeps the same style of songs a lot of the time, but their sound changes a lot. But with Warning, I thought there was just a lot of filler in that, especially in that middle part of that record. And it's an era of Green Day that's often forgot because it's stuck right in between two big records. So I just don't like that album a lot. I know you do.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite albums of theirs, to be honest with you. I always like it when they do something like kind of weird and different, which I think is why I didn't absolutely hate Father of All. But
and I didn't hate it either.
Yeah, right.
I just thought it was kind of a little subpar.
But with Warning, I think it's a really solid record. I think it varies on a lot of the different songs on there, and I just find it rather musically interesting when I listen to it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And
so what was your favorite Green Day song that you told me?
I think I went with Castaway, honestly.
I listened to it and I tried to figure it out. I think it's just a lot of these songs that aren't just saying this is my favorite song because it's the best written or the best lyrics. It's just a sentimental thing and like a personal thing.
And I think with that one, I watched their Live at Goat Island concert.
Kind of like that barge thing?
Yeah, because that was where they were touring for Warning, and I just like that era of them live, and I just like a lot of the stuff that they were doing around then, so I think that's where I really enjoyed that song the most.
Next up, we got number 8. Kevin, what is your number 8 choice on your discography rank for Green Day?
Number 8 for me, you're not going to like this one. I have Insomniac.
No, I don't. I think that's fine.
I put it rather low because I think, like, coming off of Dookie, it feels like they kind of rushed it a little bit, and some of those songs I just don't think were quite as inspired as some of their future things or even Dookie songs. It's got a good sound to it overall, but it just doesn't hit as home with me as some of their other stuff.
It's hard for me because my favorite Green Day song is off that album, Geek Stink Breath. It's just 2 minutes of energy and fun. I really enjoy that track. And like songs like Brain Stew have become big live 5 staples for Green Day off that
Yeah.
album. But a lot of people view Dookie as their debut album, even though it's their debut major label album.
Mm-hmm.
People think that Insomniac is kind of a sophomore slump a little bit. I don't feel that way. I feel it's not as strong as Dookie, obviously, because Dookie is this landmark kind of pillar of 90s music. I'm just glad you didn't rank it the worst or something.
No, I love songs like 86 and Brat.
And then for my number 8, I have Kerplunk.
Okay.
I like Kerplunk a lot. I think it's stronger than like half of their discography or so.
Sure.
But again, production. And some of the songs are just, they show where Green Day was in their career just a little less refined. But
yeah.
You're number 7, so right there in the middle of Green Day's.
Right there in the middle, I would put Trey. And I think I would do that because I like it. I think it's my favorite of their trilogy albums. My favorite song off the whole trilogy is 99 Revolutions. So I think that's why that really brought it up there for me, is that song alone, I think, makes that record fantastic for me. And I had to put one trilogy album kind of higher up in the list.
And the Forgotten off that album is really good too.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic.
It's probably the best ballad on the entire trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I am partial to Amy off of Dose. I think that's a really good song by Nick Winehouse. But my number 7 is Revolution Radio. I feel it's strong. It's Green Day getting back to that mid-2000s sound that a lot of people identify with in this generation.
Absolutely.
Some people view Green Day as 2 bands, the 90s Green Day and then American Idiot post Green Day.
Makes
with
sense.
Some weird diversions with that Uno Dos Tres trilogy. I thought Revolution Radio was good. Songs like Still Breathing were really solid off it. The title track,
Oh, yeah.
Bang Bang were all really solid. It just feels a little derivative.
Yeah,
It
that's
feels
fair.
like we need to make another album that reminds people that American Idiot was great.
I
And
get
make a
that.
lot of longer songs towards the end, like a 21st Century Breakdown and American Idiot. And on that tour for Revolution Radio that I saw twice, and you saw at the XL Center, right?
Yep.
They played like 7 songs off American Idiot. I felt like they were capitalizing off of that, but needed a reason to tour again and kind of relive that era. So they made an album that was very reminiscent. It almost feels like in Linkin Park's discography when they made Meteora. That's a very similar record to Hybrid Theory. It feels similar. It gives you the same feeling, but 15 or so years apart. It just didn't feel different enough to warrant its existence almost. I don't want to say that like I didn't enjoy it, because I did. But I enjoyed it almost because it reminded me of something else I think it was better. So number 6, so we're getting to the top half.
Number 6 is where I put Revolution Radio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I quite like that album. I really was happy to be able to see that tour because I hadn't gotten to see them since the 21st Century Breakdown tour in 2009, so...
You saw that tour?
I did.
You sick son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So that Awesome as Fuck album tour?
Yep.
God damn it.
Yeah, I did see that tour, and it was phenomenal. Back in middle school, it was life-changing for me, I thought. I was happy to be able to see them tour again because they didn't really get to do a full tour for the trilogy, so with Revolution Radio, I really like that they have a lot of songs that like show the dynamics that they have musically. Like, you look at songs like Outlaws, where they go from just like really quiet and calm to just like bang in your face.
I remember around when that record came out was when we started to like hang out and become friends too.
Yeah,
We
I
hung
think
out
so.
at your apartment, then I went back into my very, very cold car in the winter and threw in the Revolution Radio CD into my car.
Yep.
So I still distinctly remember that as well.
Absolutely.
But my number 6 spot is an album we've discussed already, Uno. I love Uno. It's so weird and quirky and fun. I think the worst song in the entire album was the lead single.
Yeah.
Oh Love was the weakest song in the entire record. I don't know why they chose that as the lead single. I think
They could have done better.
They really did not let this album land on its feet by going out with that.
Right.
Songs like Kill the DJ are a lot weirder and more fun. Songs like Kill the DJ justify why that trilogy was made. They're going that weird direction. Just go in it. Don't go with this half-baked wannabe attempt at a sing-along like Oh Love had. I re-listen to Uno every once in a while, and I just still think it's really strong. I think I listen to it the most of the 3. That's probably why I like it the best.
That makes sense.
A lot of people don't like that trilogy and write it off as some weird fever dream that Billy Joe Armstrong had while he was high and then canceled the tour. It's a weird footnote in Green Day history that a lot of people look past, but then give it some attention. Sure, it's filled with a lot of filler.
Yeah, I like songs on there like Sweet 16 and things like that are just kind of whimsical, just little numbers that are probably easily forgotten by most people, but it has good memories for me to listen to it, so.
And it's a happy album.
It is, yeah.
Stay the Night is probably the most cheerful Green Day song that you can find. I think Uno's still a really great track, but it's not in the top 5. But what is in the top 5, Kevin? What's your number 5 pick?
Number 5 for me, I'm gonna go with Dookie.
Really, that low?
Yeah, that low for for me.
Whoa, man.
I think it's a fantastic record, hence why it made the top 5, but I think as far as albums of theirs that I reach for when I'm really looking to listen to Green Day, it's probably not the one that I'll always end up going for. I love every song on that album. I think there's not a filler track on that record, but...
Is it because it's a little overplayed, do you think, that you don't return to it as much?
I think so. I think like I hear enough of the songs off of it just on the radio or just out and about that I don't tend to return to listening to the actual full album very often, but when I do, I quite enjoy it, and I'm never mad to hear Dookie.
Green Day is one of our favorite bands, but I never need to hear Welcome to Paradise, When I Come Around, or Basket Case ever again in my entire life.
Nope.
If I go and see them, I don't need to hear those songs. We've heard them ad nauseum, but there are like great filler songs on that album, like Burnout,
Yep.
and She, that don't get as much attention as those bigger songs that'll keep you coming back. It's the Back in Black of Green Day's discography.
Yep.
My number 5 spot is the follow-up to Dookie. It's Insomniac. So maybe not as high as you thought I was going to go with Insomniac, but I do think it's a little bit brief. I think the songs are a bit too short. It feels like a lesser when you compare it to Dookie for me. But there are some great songs. I like the energy, and it feels like almost the anti-follow-up to one of the biggest albums of the 90s. It feels like they'd want to go in a more commercial direction, but this one they went faster, they went less commercial and more vulgar. So I liked that about Insomniac. Even the cover is just this weird hodgepodge of nothingness. Even where Dookie had those drawings and looked like it was actually really well done, this feels like they just went in Photoshop in mid-1995 and just slapped together whatever weird pieces of art they found lying around Brooklyn.
I think the real downfall for me on that album is actually the music videos that they made for those songs. I hate the music video for Geek Stink Breath. It grosses me out, and I just can't watch it. And even with like Jaded's music video, it kind of gives me a headache whenever I watch it. It's just so all over the place. So I think that's really what kind of turned me off to some of Insomniac's songs.
In your number 4 spot.
Number 4, I have Nimrod. I think that's just a fantastic album. It's very musically interesting. They have such a variety of tracks, like even down to the last song, Prosthetic Head. There's no sleepers on that album. Well, unless you count Last Ride Home, but...
Every album needs songs that are just lesser in comparison. I think it has the best production of any Green Day record. The guitar tone on Nimrod is fantastic, and that's why it's also my number 4 pick. There's songs on that album that just don't get enough attention because they're overshadowed by Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, the 2.5-minute acoustic ballad around the middle of that record. Songs like All the Time and The Grouch and Nice Guys Finish Last should be live staples but aren't.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And that's frustrating for me when that album doesn't get the attention it deserves because it's overshadowed by that one song.
I would love to hear like Scattered and The Grouch live. I think those are some of my favorite Green Day songs that I always come back to.
Fun fact, Nimrod was the first Green Day album I ever heard.
Really?
Because back when I was like 10 or 11, my first iPod Nano, it was given to me by a friend of my parents, and it had like 6 albums on it before I put music on it. And one of those albums was Nimrod by Green Day.
Wow.
And I was like, I clicked on All the Time first, and so All the Time is the first Green Day song I ever heard.
That's really cool.
Or ever recognized. I'm sure I heard it in like a shop code when I was like 5 years old. But that album isn't in our top 3. What is in your top 3? Kevin, what's number 3?
Number 3 for me is Warning. And we've talked about Warning quite
I don't understand.
Warning is always one of those albums that I'll reach for when I'm looking to listen to some Green Day. Waiting was one of the first songs I learned how to play on guitar, so I think I have that attachment to it. Some of the lyrics on that album are just fun and whimsical, and it just has a good vibe for me when I listen to that album.
The album we haven't talked a lot about is my number 3. It's 21st Century Breakdown. I love 21st Century Breakdown.
Me too.
I think it's a little small bit too long. There are a couple songs at the end they could have trimmed out.
Yeah.
I think would have added to the entire narrative. Maybe they were essential to the narrative. I don't know. I haven't watched. They need to make a movie or something so I can follow that.
They do, yeah.
Narrative. It's overshadowed though.
It is.
By the album that came before it. It's
it really
the Insomniac of 2000's Green Day. It had to follow American Idiot. And they took too long to make it. 5 years in between records for Green Day is a long time.
I have very fond memories of that album because when it came out, I was back in middle school, and it was just such a hype around that album because it was such a long time between American Idiot and that. And thankfully we had Bullet in the Bible to hold us over until 21st Century Breakdown came out. But it was kind of when they started being like really secretive about when they were recording and what they were doing and all of that, and people really just thought Green Day had fallen off the face of the earth. They hadn't.
They were still around.
They came back really strong, and I just love songs like Peacemaker and The Static Age, and just some of those ones that are often forgotten or that most people haven't necessarily heard if they're only listening to what they hear on the radio. But
They only heard 21 Guns off that album.
oh man,
The Last Night on Earth is a fantastic ballad.
Yeah.
I think it's better than like Boulevard of Broken Dreams and stuff. I know that's kind of a controversial pick.
yeah,
I think that song is great, and the
Yeah,
fact that it was
I
like
love
never
it.
played live,
Mhm.
I think is ridiculous.
they should have made that a live staple, I think. But
It's not my top two, but what is in your top two, Kevin?
number 2 is in fact 21st Century Breakdown.
I like
for
that
me.
you ranked it this high. I like
Yep.
that we agree on that.
No, and I think that just comes back to the sentimental aspect I have with that album. Like, I really got into Green Day during the American Idiot era. I listened to everything that they put out, and just the hype around 21st Century Breakdown when it came out was fantastic. And that album did not disappoint when they put it out. I was very pleased with it, and I just listened to it hours and hours on end when it came out. So,
One of the first CDs I ever bought was 21st Century Breakdown.
okay.
I still remember seeing it on the wall at FYE at Oakwood Mall in Eau Claire back
Yeah.
in 2009. So I remember buying that and being kind of like, I had to hide it from my mother because I think that she'd get mad that I was buying this Green Day CD when I was in middle school. I had to hide AC/DC CDs from my parents. My dad supported it. My mom was like, no, it's like devil music, get away. Glad 21st Century Breakdown ranks high for you. But my number 2 is an album that kind of gives away the mystery of what our number 1 album is, because my
Yeah.
number 2 is Dookie. We've said a lot about it. It's a landmark album. It's one of the most famous records in all of rock history. We don't need to say anything else about it. But another album that's one of the biggest in rock history is your number 1 album, Kevin, for Green Day.
American Idiot.
My number 1 as well. Why do you love American Idiot?
American Idiot was the album that got me into Green Day. It was definitely the first one that I heard. Like, all my friends back in the 4th grade when that came out, they would have the posters of Green Day on the wall, and like, it was just massive. I had it in my mom's car, disc 2 of the 6 CD changer for years. I would just make her play it in the car every time I was in it, and I'd be singing along to every track, and there's not a dull song on that whole album, and I just think it's just a perfect album, really.
And unlike 21st Century Breakdown, you can follow that narrative from start to finish and you understand it. Sure, the fact that there was a play literally playing it out helps people understand it. But my favorite song on that record actually starts with What's Her Name, because What's Her Name is just a solid track. It's super underrated. It's weird to say a song off that album was underrated.
Yeah.
Because it sold like, what, 10 million copies in the United States?
Yeah.
And it also, it was a very experimental record from Green Day too, because that album started only because they had to scrap their entire record that they had just made after Warning, because the masters got stolen. But they experimented with longer songs like Jesus of Suburbia and Homecoming at the End.
Fantastic songs.
And lesser known songs on an album like Give Me Novocaine I think are very strong as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
But also has Extreme, Single Power, American Idiot, like Wake Me Up in September Ends, like you said before. Boulevard of Broken Dreams is arguably the biggest Green Day song they ever put out. It's the most commercial, so people love that. They're like, oh, I love Green Day. I love Basket Case and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Those are the only tracks I've ever heard. It's a landmark. It keeps popping back up. There's a reason people are still listening to it 15 so odd years later. And that's why it's number 1 on both our lists.
Absolutely.
And that
Fantastic.
wraps up our discography ranked for Green Day. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me in this video. I appreciate having you here. It's nice not to just talk to myself and talk to the camera. So it's nice to have other people here.
Totally.
And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram and like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. My name is Parker Reed. That's Kevin Trushenski. You've been watching PR Media. Thank you so much for watching. Keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. And now I know what the recording time is on my camera. I've never recorded for half an hour straight.